Hey guys, my name is Robert, owner of Dailey Woodworks, and this is the Recreational Woodworker. Today I want to show you how to make a super simple rabbet joint on your table saw without a dado stack. I'm working on some cabinets for a built-in that I'm building, and on our cabinets we are doing a 1/2 inch back. I know a lot of people do 1/4 inch backs, but a friend of mine who's a cabinet maker, he started using 1/2 inch backs and he's like, wow, it's a lot better. I really like it. So I tried it on this one and I absolutely agree with him. It's not that much more expensive in material, but you get a lot better and stronger cabinet. So you can see my rabbet joint right here. And I have this super simple jig that I made that I actually made to do with on my router table, but then I discovered that I really prefer doing it on my table saw because I think I get a cleaner cut. There's 4 essential jigs, or at least what I would say are essential jigs to cutting a rabbet joint on your table saw. The first one is basically, this is my setup gauge. I made this jig, set it up once, and now I can use this to quickly set up instead of having to measure. So basically it goes a 1/2 inch deep, 3/8 inch in, and I can set up, I've actually made it where I can set up my saw blade one way and my fence one way, run it, and the dimensions turn out the same. That's one advantage of using a full kerf saw blade on your table saw, is you have that 1/8 inch that you can put into your method. The second part is my tall rip fence. This is the hardest jig in the world to make. First, you have to cut down a tree, cut it into thin layers, glue and press those layers together. Let that dry, ship it to Home Depot, then you have to pick it up, then you have to cut it down, and then you create a little simple plywood fence that basically just gives you a bigger backer against your table saw fence. So it's going to go right there. I'll show you how I clamp it on in a second. It gives you just a sturdy reference area. The third thing I would say you need is a good feather board. Now, you can make a feather board yourself. I think they're tedious to make. I've made some. This is like 20 or 30 bucks. It'll save your hands. It'll save your work. Super handy to have. This one's magnetic. I know a lot of people have job site table saws. Those are, let's see, I can barely move that. I can if I really push, but I've got to put my back into it. So, I mean, it won't work if you have like a job site table saw. But there's 100 different people who make feather boards. But if you do have a cast iron top, these mag switch ones are phenomenal. You have that, and then of course your handy dandy push block. Again, I just use a homemade push block, and then whenever it starts getting worn out, I screw a new piece of plywood to it, and I run over the bandsaw and cut out a new push block. I like this design because I'm able to get downforce and guide this piece through the wood and then kick it out, and then I can just kind of cut into it as I need to. So those are what I'd say the 4 essential jigs that you can do. Some people, if you're using dado stack, have like a sacrificial tall fence, but this is how I do it. Like most jigs in my shop, they use these micro jig match fit dovetail clamps, which are phenomenal. You simply route a sliding dovetail groove into your piece. These slide in on the tracks that create, and then you just tighten it up. So this is how I attach my tall rip fence for doing cuts like this safely. So here's your typical disclaimer that safety in the shop is 100% on you. If you cut yourself trying to do something that I do, that's your own fault, not mine. So here's the deal. We want to make sure the saw is safe, unplugged. Mine has this little safety pin that you can put into the on button to make it locked out so nobody can get their hands in there. I've got my jig set up. Basically, I have this set up a 1/2 inch in, 1/2 inch up. And then I lower my height down until these teeth are just barely touching. When I go across, the blade will move a little bit, but it'll still skip across with good downforce. And then I'm going to push that all the way over. All the way right there. Make sure it's pushed against. We have our jig set up. It's a little bit tight. There it goes. I have everything how I want it now. Be able to run that through, flip it up, run it through. We're good. Now, the great thing about making your push block out of 3/4 inch material, especially for cabinetry, is now I can use that to set up my featherboard. You want it as close to the blade as you can really get it without touching it. I always push it in a little bit, get a little bit of pressure, and then lock it down. Other ones fit in these straps. So that's done. And then I want the pretty show face of the plywood facing towards me and the bad side of the plywood facing away from me. And now we're ready to make our cut. Okay, so now I made my first cut. Now I'm going to put that show face down. Then take off my featherboard. And then run it through a second time. So this is what that first cut looks like. And now I'm going to come back, and when I run it against the fence, it's going to take off that little bit right there, giving me my rabbet. Okay, so I grabbed a scrap piece of 1/2 inch plywood for us to check, and I've been doing this jig for a while, so I already know it's good. So I'm going to set it up. So we're set up here. See the rabbets in there? 1/2 inch sheet of plywood will come right there, and then whenever I glue it up, that will square up my cabinet body. Just a hair's breadth of a lip right there, but that is very good. And that's how you create a rabbet joint with your table saw. There's many ways to do a rabbet joint, but this is mine. Thanks for watching this episode of the Recreational Woodworker on how to make a rabbet joint. Very easy to make your own jig. Whatever your thickness of material is, get some scrap and just kind of slowly play with that to make this setup jig. And then once you do, you're golden. Just make sure label your jigs so that someone doesn't walk into your shop, think it's trash, and throw it away, and you have to remake it from scratch. That's the most important part of jig making. Hope you enjoyed this video. Head over to the recreationalwoodworker.com where I have an accompanying blog post and tons of plans and other resources to help you learn to be a better woodworker. Have a great day, and we'll see you later.